Ashley's reference to teacher leadership is something that's kind of near and dear to our hearts here. So do you have a question for the group about teacher leadership?
And again, none of these we can, have all the perfect answers on or figure out just today, but I think many of us are trying in very real ways to have more teacher voice in our policy conversation. So whether it's meetings like this, whether it's I travel the country trying to listen to teachers at every school I go to, whether it's our teacher ambassador fellow, we have a couple of fellows here. I had a very great question 2 years ago from a teacher talking we didn't have a principal ambassador fellow. Didn't have a good answer, so we created that program. But it's a start, it's not an ending point, we want to get better. So how do we systemically, this bridge between policy and practice? And I think everyone comes at this with the best of intentions, but too often these worlds don't meet. When they don't meet, teachers don't get served well, kids don't get served in an awful manner either. So whether it's at the local level in your districts, whether it's at the state level, whether it's with us, how do we start to bridge this divide and have extraordinary teachers, and not just extraordinary teachers, but more teacher voice helping to shape the policies we're thinking about? Quickly, to say that a teacher eval starts with 0, obviously just makes no sense intuitively to anybody. So teacher voice has to be at the table with whoever studying those policies in Oregon to think that thing through. And so much of this for me is frustrating common sense stuff. There can be real hard issues we can debate, but to have a system set up to fail from the start is nonsensical. So what can we do, all of us, to think through, again, local, state, and federal level, how we better hear each other, listen, and not that we'll come up with the perfect ideas, the perfect solutions, but have teacher voice more meaningfully impact policies that we're setting at each of those critical junctures.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kristen Record. I'm the 2011 Connecticut Teacher of the Year. In my experience, some of the best education policy that has been passed in our state has begun with teacher voice at the table before the policy was implemented, before the legislation was written. I've had so many conversations with people in Connecticut, well-meaning legislators who wrote bills, who passed laws, and then after the fact said, wow, that wasn't what we intended to happen. And in my experience, everyone in this room could have told them their unintended consequences were going to happen. My advice would be to put legislators at the state level, at the national level, directly in touch with people like us in this room, that when a senator is considering sponsoring a bill or signing onto a bill that impacts education, and their education staffer has been the education staffer for 6 months, they're not getting the best informed pieces of information about how this will play out in my classroom. We're a national network. We have State Teachers of the Year that could be connected to every member of Congress very easily. And if we had a voice in considering some of the legislation and some of the policies and bills that were going to be considered before it was brought to committee, before it was brought to the floor, so that we can be proactively involved rather than reactionary to things that are coming forward. I think that would do a lot to address education policy, but also going back to what Joe said, address the idea of elevating and rebranding the teaching profession.
Just very quickly, so is this group structured? Are you connected in each of your states to the governor, the state legislature? Are you connected to folks in Congress? No. So some yeses, some no's. So it doesn't sound like systemic. Is that?
We're just starting our state chapter, Sister Secretary. In this iteration, we're only 18 months old, we have to remember, so we're just starting our state chapter.
No, this is not a critique. This is just trying to understand the
fact.
But I just think, again, it's a fantastic idea, and again, just to start to formally and systemically build those relationships over time, I think we really do. So I'd love to follow up and figure out how, if I can help facilitate something.
I'm Luke Foley, the 2014 Vermont Teacher of the Year. Everybody in this room has played the game telephone, and we know that as you move further and further along the line, the message becomes more and more distorted. So if you think about policy that's being pushed at, say the national level, by the time that reaches the state level, and then to administrators, and comes through the networks, we start to lose the message. And so I think what I've learned in the past couple of weeks, especially with ECS and with this conference, is that it's a two-way street. Two concrete ideas that maybe we could think about. One would be inviting state legislators into our college programs so that they're actually getting an opportunity to shape future educators in those college programs. We often will have special education law and have lawyers come into those programs, but what about actually inviting legislators in? That maybe opens up some of those doors for communication and also prepares our teachers who are going to be working in the classrooms a little bit better. Another idea would potentially be to, I've been working in my state to bring your state legislator to school week, and actually trying to reach out to our state legislators and get them into our classrooms. And that's been a tremendous challenge, mostly because it's not something that's been done before. But I think trying to create those face-to-face conversations is the best way to do that.
Hi, thank you very much for the question. I'm Peggy Stewart, 2005 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year. I have two things to say. One, I never use mandate and like in the same sentence. However, from New Jersey, there was a mandate that we have a professional teaching standards board, and through that board, we had the majority had to be teachers on that board. And then we created a systemic program where we had actually school-mandated committees of teachers with administrators, and the majority always had to be teachers because they were looking at professional development for teachers. The education that came through this was wonderful. You saw teachers rising up in different areas and asking questions and becoming so informed. It was a natural gateway to teacher leadership in many ways. And it was so effective that Linda Darling-Hammond, in her Stanford report on professional learning, wrote about New Jersey as one of the models. And Charlotte Danielson, I know, also got it on board at many points. And it was a wonderful learning experience. And I chaired that board for 6 years, and it was so effective that our recent administration did away with all of it, and there no longer is a professional teaching standards board or any other mandated. So I know that mandate isn't necessarily the way, but having these boards or these positions in schools where teachers are actually part of the structure, and you get rid of the archaic structure of the hierarchy that doesn't have teachers as part of the decision making would be a great way. And I would take it a step further from my colleague that just spoke before about coming to the table. And I think even when I saw the picture with Justin at the table in the President's office, what a wonderful thing. And the evolution of teacher leadership, I think, has brought us to wanting to have that voice at the table. But at this stage in my life, I can't deal with an evolution anymore. I'm ready for a revolution, which means I want to host the party that says you're invited to my table. And I think rather than being, we hear there's a new evaluation model, come vet it out for us, what do you think? And I really want to be the ones that say we are a natural structure that says we redefine the problem, and this is a problem we need your help with, and we'd like to invite you, Mr. Secretary, and we'd like to invite you, Charlotte, and whoever else to our table to really have us be the main voice for what our students need and what our profession needs. And last thing, sorry, but also the competitive grant process, that might be a little carrot as a way to say, if you include teacher leadership, there's some nice little points there for you. So anyway, you can do that, and I thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Jane Schmidt. I'm your 2014 Iowa Teacher of the Year, and I just wanted to share a little bit about teacher leadership that's taking place in Iowa. Our legislature passed over $50 million, and it is for a teacher leadership and compensation program. And the way it's going to work in Iowa is local design of those programs and how we're going to include at least 25% of the staff in leadership roles. And so the money is allocated, and the first thing they do in Iowa, and I know this doesn't sound like a lot of money, but our starting salaries all have to be $33,500. So the first part of the budget is to move that salary up first. And then the rest of the budget is used to incorporate leadership roles for teachers across the district. And you must include 25% of the people that are in the district, and they have to have taught at least 2 years in the district. And so a third of our school districts are participating this next year. They're rolling out their program. And then by the end of 3 years, all districts will have the capability of having the TLC in their school district. And I think the way it works so well is because it brings teachers and administrators together to design a program that works for their district because they know their students better than anybody else. So any program that you would design at the federal level, it would be appreciated that you consider each school district and how they can best roll something out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Williams, Alaska 2009 Teacher of the Year, and NNSTOY board member, and Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor in Alaska.
That's good to know, thank you.
I think at one point on the campaign trail, I had a conversation with a woman who came up, we were talking about one issue, and I said, well, obviously, you agree that we need to have a quality public education for all Alaska students. And she got really adamant. She's like, hell no. And I was kind of startled. And she talked about how the public school system was broken and all that. And when I talked to her, she had had no interaction with public education for more than 20 years. She homeschooled her own kid, had a bad experience. But she got a message that schools are bad, we can't compete, it's broken. And she's getting that message. It's not from public schools, it's not from teachers, but she's getting that message. And that's one of the things I think needs to change. And I do find it very ironic that when I was in 2010, one of 4 Americans invited to present at the Singapore Education Conference, that we're often compared to other countries on standardized scores, but we're not compared on strategies. And in Singapore, just the sense that teachers were highly respected, valued, loved. I felt like a rock star over there, but that idea of collaboration, working as a team. And here, sometimes it feels like we got to fire the bottom 20%, or they're bad teachers, we just have to get rid of them. So that has to change. And I'm a math teacher. I also think collectively as a country, we need to increase our radius of compassion and empathy beyond just our own kids or our own grandkids. And we need people to care about Alaska Native kids in villages, inner city kids. If we can change that circle of compassion and make it bigger, we fail as a country. And there's no other industry sometimes where we look at changing, there's a problem, and we're going to change it by lowering quality. And sometimes we try and do that in public education. So we need to make sure we're committed, and we need to change. Thank you.